Hello, my dear students. This is Ms. Shayma Gharib and today's lesson about value of decimal numbers. Let's start by some rules before you watch any video. First, you have to sit in a quiet place. You should have your pen and a piece of paper to take notes and to solve questions. You should pause the video after each question, then you try to answer on your own. Then you play the video to check your answer and to understand the question in case you get a wrong answer. Are you ready? Let's start. Value. Look at this number here. It is 34.278. So this is a decimal number that has 3 decimal places, as you can see. First, let's revise the names of all the places in this number. This 3 is in the tens place, the 4 is in the units or the ones place, then we have the decimal point, then this 2 in the tenth place, and the 7 in the hundredth place, and the 8 in the thousandth place. So as we know, the value of digits is getting smaller from left to right. What does this mean? This 3 is in the tens place, and the tens place here is the place with the biggest value. Then the units, and the units is smaller than the tens. Then the 10th place, and the 10th place is smaller than the units or the 1th place. Then the 100th place, which is smaller than the tens and smaller than the units and smaller than the tens. And the 1000th place is the smallest place here in this number. Is this clear? So let's start by the digit 3, which is in the tens place, which means 3 tenths. And the value of this 3 tenths equals 30. When I read it 34. So the value of this digit is 30. What about the 4 units or 4 ones? It's just 4. Then we will start the decimal part of the number. So 2 tenths, which means 2 over 10 or 2 divided by 10 or 2 in the 10th place, which is the first place after the decimal point. So we write its value as 0.2. We can also write 2 tenth. 2 tenth. Okay? Then let's look at the 7. It is in the 100th place. Okay? So its value is 0.07. The 7 should be in the hundredths place, which is the second place in the decimal part. Okay? We can also write its value as 7 hundredths. Okay? Same as the 2 tenths here. And for the 8, it is in the thousandths place, which means the third decimal place. So it will be 0.008, which is 8 thousandths. Is this clear now? How do we write the value of the digits if I have a decimal number? Now let's go to the next. Remember that the value of 0 is always 0. If I have a 0 in any place, the value of it will be always 0, even if it's in the tenths or in the tenth or in the millions or in the thousands or in the thousands. Okay, so the value of 0 will be always 0. Value of decimal numbers. Look at this number here. Let's read it together. This part is the whole number, and this part is the decimal part. And I have here 3 decimal places. So first, let's put the names of each place. This 5 is in the hundreds place, so I read it 5 hundreds. Then the 6 is in the tens place, so it is 60. 563. 3 in the ones place or in the units place. Then I put the decimal point to start the decimal part of my number. This 4 is in the first decimal place, which is the 10th. Okay, then this 1 is in the second decimal place, which is hundreds, and this 2 in the third decimal place, which is thousands. All right, so now let's talk about the value of each digit. I will start with the thousands. This 2 in the thousands place, which is the third decimal place, so its value should be a 3 decimal places number. So its value will be 2 thousandths. I can write it like this, 2 thousandths, or 0.002, which is 2 thousandths as well, or I can write it in the fraction form as 2 over 1000. Is this clear? So I have 3 different forms to write the value of a digit. I can write it like this, or in words, or as a decimal, or as a fraction. Is this clear? Now let's do the hundreds place. I have 1 in the hundreds place, so I can write its value as 1 hundredths. So it will be 1 hundredths, or I can write it as a decimal, which has 2 decimal places, because this is the hundreds and it is the second decimal place. So it will be 0.01, which is the same meaning as 1 hundredths. When I read this number, I read it as 1 hundredths. Or I can write it as a fraction. What do you think? It will be 1 over 100. Okay? Now let's do the same with the first decimal place, which has 4. So this 4, I write its value as 4 tenths, or in a decimal form 0.4, or in a fraction form, which is 4 over 10. So it's really important to know how we can write the value of the digits in the 3 different forms: the decimal, in the fraction, and in words. Now, let's talk about the whole number part. I have this 3 in the ones place, so its value is 3. 3 units or 3 ones. What about 6, which is in the tenths place? 6 tenths means 60. So its value will be 60. Or I can write 6 tenths. What about this 5? Its value will be, it's this 5 in the hundreds place. So I can write it as 500, 500. So the value of it is 500, or I can write it in words as 500. Is this clear? Now look at this question. Decompose. What the meaning of decomposing? That to write or to split the number into the value of each digit. So if I want to split this number to its value of each digit, I will start by reading 2.34 or 2 and 34 hundredths. I have two decimal places. The first decimal place after the decimal point is the tenth, and the second is the hundredths. So this 2, for example, it is in the units place, so its value is 2. Now let's go to this 3. It is in the first decimal place, which is the tenth place, so its value is 3/10. So I write 3/10 as 0.3, or I can write it as a fraction 3/10. Now the last digit, the 4, which is in the hundredth place, which is the second decimal place. So its value will be 4 hundredths. How to write 4 hundredths in a decimal form? 0.004. 0.04. Okay? Now let's see the next number. 57.18 or 57 and 18 hundredths. It has two decimal places. Tenths, the first place after the decimal, and hundredths, the second place after the decimal point. Now, let's start by the biggest value, which is the 5. This 5 is in the tenths place. When I read it 50. So its value is 50. Now, what about this 7? We say 57. This is the tenths place, and this is the ones or the units place. So the 7 has a value of 7. Now, what about this one? It's the first decimal place, which is the tenths. So I read it 1/10, which is 0.1. What about this 8? The 8 in the hundredths place or the second decimal place. So I read it 8 hundredths, which is how to write it as a decimal, 0.08. It is in the hundredths place, as you can see, the second decimal place. Let's try one more number, 81.256. In this number, it has 3 decimal places. Do you remember the places? The tenths, the first decimal place, then hundredths, then thousands. So let's start from the beginning. We said 81.256 or 81 and 256 thousandths. Is this clear? So now let's start by the digit 8. It is in the tenths place, so it will be 8/10, which is 80. 1 in the units place, so it will be 1. 2 in the tenths place, so its value will be 2/10, 0.2. 5 in the hundredths place, so its value is 5 hundredths, so we write it as 0.05. And the 6 is in the thousandths place, so we read it 6 thousandths. Its value is 0.006. One more number. This number now is a negative number. So all the values will be negative numbers. So when I say this is the units, then tenths, then hundreds, then thousands, this 4 in the units place. So its value is 4. But because this is a negative number, so its value will be -4. And this 6 in the first decimal place, which is the tens, its value is 6 tenths, which is 0.6, but because this is a negative number, so it will be negative 0.6. Now, this one in the hundredths place, so its value 100ths. How do we write it? 0.01, but it will be a negative number. So it will be negative 0.01. And 2 is in the thousandths place, which is the third decimal place. So its value is 2 thousandths. So in this number, it will be negative 2 thousandths. So which is negative 0.002. Is this clear? Now, let's compose. I have the values of the number and I need to get the number in the standard form or to compose these numbers together. Let's look at this number. I have 9. What is this 9? It means 9 ones or 9 units. 2 tenths. Do you remember? Yes, this is the tenth. We said we can write it as a decimal as 0.2 or as a fraction form. And 5 hundredths, which means I have 9 in the units place. Then I will start the decimal part, so I have to put a decimal point. Then in the tenths place, I have 2 tenths, and in the hundredths place, I have 5. So my number will be 9.25 or 9 and 25 hundredths. Let's see another example. I have 30, I have 1, I have 4 tenths and 7 hundredths, which means in the ones place I have 1, in the tenths place I have 30 or 3, not 30. Remember, 30 means 3 tenths. 4 over 10, which means 4 tenths, so I have 4 in the tenths place. So now let's start to put the digits. We said we have 3 in the tenths place because it will be 3 tenths, which means 30. And 1 in the units place, so followed by 1. Then I have the decimal part, so I have to put a decimal point after the ones place. Then 4 in the tenths place, which is the first decimal place. And then 7 in the hundredths place, which is the second decimal place. So the number will be 31.47. Now, let's see one more example. I have 805, 6 over 100, 3 over 1000. This 800s means I have 8 in the hundreds place. So I have hundreds, tens, ones or units, then a decimal point. We have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. Okay, now let's put these values in the correct places. We have 8 in the hundreds place. Where is the hundreds place? Here it is. I will put it here. 5 in the ones, because this is 5 units, so this is the ones place. What about the tens place here? Do I have any tens? No. So what should I do? I have to put a 0 when I don't have value or digit in this place as a placeholder. Okay? So when I don't have one of the places, I add 0 in the place of it. Now let's start the decimal part. I have 6 hundredths. 6 over 100. Is it in the first place after the decimal point? No, the first place is for the tenth. So this 6 will be in the second place, which is the hundredths place. What about the thousands? It's the third place, so there will be 3 thousandths here. What about this tense? What should I do? As I said, if I miss any of the places, I have to put 0 as a placeholder. So my number will be 805.063 or 805 and 63 thousandths. Is this clear? One more example. I have 8 in the tenth place because it's 8 tenths, 1 in the hundredths place, and 5 in the thousandths place. Do I have any ones? No, no ones. So I will put 0 in the ones place. Then I will start the decimal part. I cannot start a number from the decimal point. I have to put a digit in the ones place if I don't have any ones. Is this clear? And as we said, if I don't have a digit, so I put 0 as a placeholder. So what to write in the tenth place, which is the first place after the decimal point? The 8. So the 8 will be placed first, then 1 in the hundredths, then 5 in the thousands. So my number will be 0.815 or 815 thousandths. Okay, is this clear? Now, our questions time. Write the value of each digit. Look at this number, 812.537 or 0.537 thousandths. Now let's start by the value of each digit. The 8 is in the hundredths place, the 1 in the tenths place, the 2 in the ones or the units place, and this 5 is in the tenths, and the 3 in the hundredths, and the 7 in the thousands. So let's start by the value of the thousandths, 7 thousandths. So the value of the 7 thousandths is, I can write it as 7 thousandths or 0.007, which is 7 thousandths as well, or 7 over 1000 as a fraction. What about the 3 hundredths? I can write it as 3 hundredths or 0.03 or 3 over 100. What about the 5 tenths? I can write it as 5 tenths or 0.5 or 5 over 10. What about this 2 in the ones place? I can write it as 2 because it's 2 units, 2 ones. What about 1 in the tenths place? 1 10, which means number 10. So its value is 10. What about the 8 hundredths? The 8 in the hundredths place, so I write it as 8 hundredths. How to write 8 hundredths? 800, 800. Okay? Is this clear? Now let's go to the next question. Decompose. 3.45. What do you think? Yes, it will be 3 units or ones, 0.4 or 4 tenths because it's in the tenths place, and 5 hundredths, which is 0.05. Next number, 68.108. So I will start from the biggest value, 6 tenths, which is 60, 8 units, which is 8, 1 in the tenths place, which is 1 tenth, so it will be 0.1, and I have 0 in the hundredths place, so its value is, do you remember we said the value of the 0 at any place will be always 0, so I don't need to add 0 or to write plus 0 because 0 has no value, it will not change the value of the number, so I move on to the 8 in the thousandths place, so I will write it 8 thousandths, which is 0.008. Now let's see the next number. It is a negative number, so all the values or the value of each digit will be negative number. So 1 in the ones place or in the units place, the value of it is 1. So it will be negative 1. Here, 2 tenths, so it will be negative 2 tenths, which is negative 0.2. 5 in the hundredths place, the second decimal place, it will be negative 0.05. And the 6 in the thousands, so it will be negative 6 thousandths. So it will be negative 0.006. This number 6.097. I will start 6 in the ones or in the units place, so its value is 6. 0 in the tenths place. Should I write it? No. I can skip it and go to the next digit. So 9 in the hundredths place, so it is 9 hundredths. How to write 9 hundredths? 0.09. What about the 7 in the thousandths place? So it will be 7 thousandths. How to write 7 thousandths? 0.007. And as you can see, the 7 in the third place, the 9 in the second place, and so on. Now, let's compose. I have a number here. What do you see? I see ones place, tenths place, and hundredths place. So in the ones place, I will put the 8, then the decimal point. In the tenths place, I will put the 3, and in the hundredths place, I will put the 6. So the number will be 8.36 or 8 and 36 hundredths. The second one, I have 40, which is 4 tenths, and 5, which is 5 units or ones, 9 tenths, and 2 hundredths. So the 4 will be in the tenths place, and the 5 will be in the ones or in the units place, then a decimal point to start the decimal part, 9 in the first place, which is the tenth, and 2 in the second place, which is the hundredths. So my number will be 45.92 or 45 and 92 hundredths. In the second example here, we have 100 and 2 and 0.07, which is 7 hundredths, and 0.009, which is 9 thousandths. Let's see. I can write it as 1 in the hundredths place, because this is 100. Do I have any tenths here in this number? No, I don't have any tenths. I only have 2, which is 2 ones. And I have hundredths, which is the 7 hundredths. And I have thousands, which is 9 thousandths. So if I want to write this as a decimal number or to compose this number, I will write the one. It will be 102 point. What to put in the first tenths place? Which is the tenths. Do I have any tenths? No. So it will be 0. What? Then I will put the 7 in the second decimal place, which is the hundredths. Then the 9 at the third decimal place, which is the thousandths. So my number will be 102.0 in the tenths, because we don't have tenths, 7 in the hundredths, and 9 in the thousandths. Now, let's see the next example. We have 5 over 10, which is 5 tenths, which means 5 in the tenths place, 1 over 100, which means 1 hundredths, 1 in the hundredths place, and 6 over 1000, which is 6 in the thousandths place, or 6 thousandths. So what do we have any units or ones? No, so I will put 0. Then the first place, which is the tenths, has 5, and the second place, which is the hundredths, I will put 1, and the third decimal place, which is the thousands, so I will put 6 in the thousands. So the number will be, yes, 0.516 or 516 thousandths. This is the end of our lesson today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any question, please feel free to leave a comment and I will answer you as soon as possible. Please remember that your feedback is highly appreciated. Thank you very much and have a nice day.